Okay, so I decided to change the plans just a little bit. So unfortunately, we're not going to be going over the Angular part of this tutorial today. I want to change it up and go ahead and finish up working with jQuery. And then I'll have a session on Angular as well as a session on React.js. So this is going to end up being a 7 to 8 series tutorial. So this was actually recommended by or requested by a viewer. So finally, I'm also not feeling the greatest today, so this is going to be a bit shorter session. But we are going to cover a number of important things. So today we're basically just going to finish up using the using vanilla JavaScript and jQuery and work on some error handling in the front and back end. So again, activate your virtual environment. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start by looking at our app's current functionality. So let's fire up the server. Yeah, I'm already in there. So, okay, so Python app.py. And then navigate to localhost 5000. So right now, you can just pick a location and then a programming language. Click Find Me a Developer. And so then we get the username and a clickable link here to his or her GitHub profile. They also have an absurdly large picture here that's associated with the user profile. So let's just clean this up a bit. So first, let's update this image. So we go back to our code here, open up app, static, main.js. Let's go ahead and add a class to this. And we can just call it avatar. So class equals avatar. And then we can add then we can add the CSS styles for that in our index.html file. So under templates, index.html, and we can just add that here. So .avatar. And let's do a max width of 150 pixels. Okay, and now let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. Just refresh. So Seattle and then Python. Okay, so now the width is 150 and the height will now be sized with appropriately. Okay, so right now what we're doing is we're returning the same result each time. So right now we're getting this user Jake VDP from Seattle and then Python. I'm a developer. So we have the exact same result. So how about we return a random result? And to do that, we need to get a random number. So back within your JavaScript file here, instead of passing 0 in here, let's go ahead and pass in a random number. So we want to set a new variable for that. So we can just call it random, set it equal to math.floor and math. So this is vanilla JavaScript here. So math.random, and you can times that by object.keys, and then we want to pass in results.items and then .length. We can now go ahead and pass that variable random into the results here. So random, let me save that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test this out a few times just to make sure that we are going to get a random developer each time. So again, let's do Seattle, Python, I'm a developer. Okay, we got somebody different that time, and Seattle, Python, a developer. Cool. Okay. Okay, so now that we're getting somebody random each time, let's talk a little bit about error handling. So we touched briefly on this last time. Actually, I just brought the subject up. So again, like if you search for something that you know is not going to return any results. So last time we searched for North Korea, very, very different places. Let's open up the JavaScript console here. So if we search for North Korea and Ruby, find me a developer. We're getting this error here. That's because we're not getting any results back. Let's go ahead and handle that a little bit more elegantly, especially for the end user, because the end user sees nothing happening on his or her end. And so there is a quick and dirty method that we can use to alert the user if that something went wrong. So let's go back to our JavaScript here. And again, within the success handler here, let's put an if statement. So if results.items length, and if that is greater than 0. So if that's greater than 0, so basically if we get some results back, we want this to happen here. Otherwise, go ahead and add an error to the DOM. So again, we're going to target that div that has the CSS selector of an ID equal to results. And now we can go ahead and append some sort of error. So something went terribly wrong. Please try again. Okay, so let me make sure I'm closing out everything here. Okay, yeah, this looks good. So again, we have this conditional here. It checks to see if the length of the items is greater than 0. If that returns if that is true, then we do all this in here that we are normally doing. Else, we are just going to append an error to the DOM. So let's just test that out real quick. And I'll refresh. Okay. Okay, something went terribly wrong. Please try again. Okay, so this is really kind of a catch-all error that could have some unintended side effects. So for example, what happens if the API is completely down? Will you even get any results back? So if we don't get any results back here, and if we try to test this, we are going to get an error. So the best place to handle this is when you actually make the API call. And that's actually going to be in our Flask code here. So here's where we're making the API call. And so one way to simulate this would be to just turn off your Wi-Fi, turn off your internet access, and see what happens when you make that API call. And I imagine, this line here is going to fail. I'm not sure what it's going to return. But again, you can test this out to see what exactly happens. And then you can use a try except block. So you probably want to do a try here, something like this nature. Can't really test this out since I can't turn off the internet access. So you want to try this, and then you probably want to put this return right here. If there is an exception, then you probably want to return some sort of error. So JSONify, and then you can throw in a dictionary, a dict here, so error, and then you can put in some sort of error message here. And then you can actually throw a 500 error here. So this syntax here will throw a 500 error, and it'll take this dictionary, serialize it, and then you could take that and append it to the DOM, do whatever you want with it. So again, this is kind of a catch-all, and this could have some unintended side effects, or it could actually be hiding some unintended side effects. So you'd want to play around with this a little bit. The best way to really catch this error these types of errors is to write both unit and integration tests. So unit tests go through each part of your code, testing bite-sized pieces of it, while integration tests mimic the end-user behavior to test a number of pieces of functionality. And so for more on this, you can definitely consult the Real Python course as we go over exactly how to do those types of tests. So let me just revert this back out here, or undo this here. Cool. Let's take a look at this here. So this is the app that we're modeling. So if we search for Boulder, this is what we're getting here. And so let's try and mimic this functionality. So let's start by updating the buttons within our application. So if we go to our index.html here, let's just add a new button here. And let's just say, try a different location. And I'll put an ID in here of try again. And then let me change the classes here, and these are Bootstrap classes. I'll change that to primary and change that to success. Spelled right. Okay, there we go. So just take note of this ID here, this try again. We're going to be using it in just a second. And so let's just test the functionality out real quick. So nothing really new here. It's just going to do the same thing if we click Find a Developer. So on the initial load, we want this second button hidden. So let me show you how to do that. So back in your main.js, let's target the tag that's associated with that ID. So again, it's that input tag, or I'm sorry, it's that button, and there's that ID that's associated with this ID here. And then we can use this method.hide. So on the initial DOM load, hide method, hide that button. And again, we can refresh here. So the button is gone. So now what happens after we perform the search? So if we look back at the app that we are modeling, you can see that after we do the search, new button appears and the inputs are hidden. So let's update that. That is going to happen. Let's put that in here. So we can target the inputs just by doing input. And again, we can use that hide method to hide the inputs. Now we are going to do the opposite here. And instead of hide, we're going to do show. So that is going to show the try again button. And again, let's just test this out. Okay, so how about Seattle and Python again? So find me a developer. Okay, so it hid the inputs and then it added this button here. Let's try again. So now what happens when you click that find me a developer button after the initial search? So we're getting nothing back here. And that's because what we're really doing is just searching again with those same inputs that we put in before. So we started off with Seattle and Python, and we're trying to search again using those same inputs. But if you remember, what we're doing here in the code is we're clearing out those inputs. So let's actually comment that out. And if we go back to the code here, or I mean the example here, let's try Seattle, Python, find me a developer. Now if we click it again, those inputs are still there. So we're able to make that same API call. Okay, so now what happens if we want to enter new inputs? Well, we want to add a new event handler for this try a different location button. So let's go ahead and add that code to our JavaScript here. We want to do it outside the form submission here. So we'll put it right here. So we are going to target that try again button, and then on click. So when that button is clicked, we are going to fire this function here. Okay. So what do we want to happen? Well, we want to show the inputs. So we can say input, and we can go ahead and clear out the inputs at that point. So, and then we just do show. Okay. Then we want to hide the try again button. So we have that code here. And then finally, we can go ahead and clear out the results too. So target the results here. And we'll just clear out the HTML. You can see right up here, we're appending all this to the results. And then when we click try again, it's going to clear out all of the HTML that we're adding in there. So let me close this out correctly. Okay, there we go. Semicolon there. Okay, that looks good. Go ahead and test again. So this is Seattle, Python. I'm a developer. Let's make sure this still works. Okay, now let's say we want to try a different location. Cool. So we can do Boulder and then Python. Find me a developer. Awesome. One very last important thing is caching. So notice how we've kind of got a hack going on right now. So notice how we're not saving the results that we get back from the API after each search. So again, what we are really doing is we are just searching that API again when we click that search again button after an initial search. So if we search for Seattle and Ruby, when we click that find a developer button, it is redoing that entire process over again. So it's doing everything in here again. So basically, it's just another form submission, and we're grabbing the same inputs here. So in this case, it was Seattle and Ruby. They are getting sent to the back end, and they're performing this search all over again. So do you see the problem there? This really slows down the app since we have to send another request to the back end. So that request comes from here with this AJAX request, or within here, this AJAX request. Then in the back end, we are calling that API, and then we are grabbing the response from it, sending it back to the front end, and then we're parsing this all over again. So this is very inefficient. We are calling this API again, over and over again, which since we have a certain rate limit set up of, I believe, if I remember, it was 5 per minute, that's going to be a problem. So this is solved through caching the response the first time on the front end. So the first time that we make that search, what we want to do is we want to do some caching within here. So then when you search again, you're just pulling from that cache data rather than performing that entire process over again. This can be kind of complicated depending on the solution that you choose. So we're going to look more into this first with Angular. And with Angular, it's not too difficult, and actually it's not going to be too difficult with vanilla JavaScript and jQuery either. But again, we'll look at that a little bit down the road. And definitely after this series is done, my plan is to turn this into a full-on chapter in real Python. So I'm going to clean it up a bit, add in some additional bells and whistles. I'll probably add in a persistence layer with Postgres. This is going to also include the caching, the right kind of caching as well. Okay, so that is all I'm going to cover today. Again, I'm not feeling the greatest today, so it's going to be a little bit shorter session, obviously. Just wanted to cover a few more things, and also for those that really aren't interested in maybe seeing Angular and or React, you know, the app is really fully fleshed out now with a lot of the functionality that is included with this original app that we were modeling. So yeah, there's a few more things that need to happen with error handling, and I would definitely look at caching, but we're really at a point with, and also testing, we're really at a point with the, at least the jQuery solution where there is kind of a final app there. So as always, let's go ahead and kill the server and just do a git add, git commit, and put in your commit message. So more fun with jQuery. Push up to GitHub if you have your repo set up, and then go ahead and deactivate. Okay, so next time, I promise we are going to be looking at Angular, and then the session after that, we're going to be looking at React.js. So for the next session, we're going to remove all this wonderful JavaScript and jQuery code that we've worked so hard on. And again, so be sure to check out this tutorial. This is another reason why I wanted to delay the Angular portion, is to give people a chance to go through this Angular tutorial. It's just to get the basic syntax down, since I can't cover all of that in one session. And this app is actually pretty cool. So you start from scratch, you build a basic Angular project, and what you end up with is, let me see if I have a final picture. So this is what you end up with. It's actually connecting up to an API as well. So it's a pretty cool app that you build as well. So I think you'll have fun with that. And again, when you go through this, just try and get a basic understanding of Angular and how it achieves just much of the same stuff that we are doing with jQuery and Ajax, just a little bit differently. Cool. So thanks for watching.